And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry, and we're going to be discussing the series finale of Your Honor, Part 10, Episode number 10, and we're going to jump right into the ending. But before we do that, like I said, I haven't said it yet, but full spoilers. If you've not hit the sub button, please do so. Hit the bell. We have a lot of other content on the channel. Check that out. More content coming. Spencer's almost finished with our little studio setup that he's building, so that should be done here really soon. Leave a comment, leave a like, and yeah, like I said, we're starting with the ending of the episode. That being the tragedy that is the death of Adam. Um, we all saw it coming, I think, to a degree. Every move he made, every action he took, was leading to this moment. Everything, and so it sort of made sense that that's how it ended. But the way it ended, and I'll go over it briefly, and then I definitely want your guys' take on it. Basically, the baseball that we've been discussing for weeks now that is floated around the whole time. It belonged to Adam and Michael. Everyone has held it at some point. It ended up with Eugene. Eugene got it to Lee, who got it to Michael, who sold it. Then he got the money to Lee. Lee gave the money to Eugene. He uses that very money to purchase a firearm, then he accidentally kills Adam. He's there to kill Carlo, to avenge his brother's death. The series opened with Adam accidentally killing Rocco. The series ends with Eugene accidentally killing Adam. Guys, what did you think of the ending?
I want to just hit on something you just said. You said, get revenge for killing his brother. That's essentially what the kind of theme of the last. Sorry, the dog just ran inside. That's kind of the theme of what's happened the last couple episodes. When you look at what happened with Jimmy, would you look what happened with, or not Jimmy, but would you look what happened with Carlos? He was avenging his brother. Eugene was trying to avenge his brother, and in that way he kind of did. Now, it wasn't the intended target, but it definitely was the person who's responsible for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like we were saying before, it's sort of a poetic thing in a way, because it's like he doesn't know that, so now he's got this guilt, and you can clearly see it on Eugene's face, that he feels guilty about this, even though he actually got what he wanted unknowingly, and everything's kind of come full circle here, and and oddly enough, it's the sort of, well, you said we all saw Adam's death coming, like, yeah, we did, to the point where I was jokingly referring to this as a suicide run for Adam, because he set himself up for this. Like, there's no way he was gonna. Well, at least if they were gonna maintain any level of realism, he was gonna survive this at all. Because the way he wedged himself into dangerous positions and things. And it's just the sort of thing where roughly, everybody got the ending. You'd kind of, well, I thought there was a possibility that it might be Michael instead of him. Michael sacrificing himself, but there was no way we were going to get out of here in this series with both protagonists alive, just because of the amount of, mistakes and situations that Adam had wedged himself in, and Michael gives Adam that speech that no one should, be punished that much for one mistake. It really wasn't one mistake on Adam's part. It was a series of mistakes, and there's so much that he did wrong. And this was I think the ending we all expected, but not necessarily the way we expected it. Like, I expected the baseball to be used as a piece of evidence or something at some point. I didn't so much expect Eugene and that surprised me too, to the point where I rewound that scene where Eugene buys the baseball, to see, like, wait a minute, is he using the baseball money? Because I know he paid the guy with something. I didn't know. I wasn't sure whether I looked to see if it was the same envelope, and like, sure enough, it looks like it was the baseball money, and it's just full circle. It was a neat way to end this, even though it's a odd coincidence, but forgivable because of how good the writing is. It's an odd coincidence.
I don't know that Michael was the protagonist. I'd say he's more the antagonist. I don't know that he was because he did a bunch of fucked up stuff. but I had a tie-in with that.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where he's clearly our leading man, our person that we're following, with the
Mm-hmm.
exception of Adam, who and his questionable decision making, which like you said, would be realistic. It would be unrealistic if he weren't so young. Some of these decisions he's made.
The biggest tragedy of the ending, besides the cycle of death that occurs, is the fact that, and I'm curious how audiences are gonna accept or not accept this, but the Baxters get away with everything. They win. So much so that Jimmy and Gina get to watch Michael suffer as he's holding his dying son Adam. And they're aware of what Adam did and how everything played out. They get the joy of watching this, and they don't have to be the ones that do it. They don't have to cover it up or anything. Matter of fact, they'll get to use this to their advantage potentially. Eugene's the one that sort of screwed in this scenario, possibly more than likely. All the bad guys sort of win in certain ways, and that's frustrating. Now there's some talk, and we'll get into speculation as far as where the story could go or would go if there were more seasons. But Charlie saying with Nancy that he has plans to clean up the city. I can't imagine Elizabeth, the senator, just sitting back and letting these events play out without wanting to know more about what exactly happened. So there are lingering questions, but what do you guys think about the fact that as it sits, the Baxters win?
I have zero issue with it. Mostly because the way this whole season was drawing parallels between Jimmy and Michael. They're, on opposite ends of what you would think would be the law, although Michael broke all kinds of laws to try and protect the kid. And I think that was the biggest parallel throughout the whole season, is that no matter what happened, Carlos is a piece of shit, but his parents still loved him, still tried to protect him, went through, everything to try and keep him out of prison. And Michael was doing the same thing. He was trying to protect Adam the whole time. All the fucked up stuff he did, he was only doing it to protect Adam. And, throughout this season, I was waiting for Michael to be the bad guy. I was waiting to see him do something shittier or be involved in, I don't remember the mom's name, be involved in her death.
Robin.
But as we went on, like this episode, it shows everything was played out. There wasn't like a whole lot of open-ended things as far as that went, the wife or whatever. But he wasn't an awful human being. What he was doing was awful to protect his kid. And to me, that was the biggest parallel throughout this whole season, is that we were seeing
Spencer, elaborate on that. You're a father. Me and neither Larry and I are fathers, well, as far as we know, but we're not fathers. You're a father. You have several kids, and you're right. That is very much the theme of the show.
Yeah, I think Brian's saying, list the crimes that you would commit on behalf.
Well, sort of. like you I could see how you would connect with this in a different way, and yeah, go into that.
I'm not going to self-incriminate. But
well, I was saying crime. Yeah, just how does it?
What have you done?
Affect me? Yeah.
Well, I don't have as many strings to pull, so I would do anything for them. Now,
well, specifically, let me go. I'm sorry again, but there's the dialogue with Lee in the office.
Yeah,
and he said, and so that's the scene I really want you to think about, because she keeps saying, "What about justice? What are you afraid of?" She that's her specific line, and in the back of my head, his son's death would be the answer to that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's that self-sacrifice. Whereas, and I can't tell you that every parent's like this, because I know a ton that are just pieces of shit. They're selfish and everything else. However, a good parent, their kids overtake everything, whether it's another spouse, another person, work, the law, whatever it is. You do whatever you can to keep your kids safe, and there's not a whole lot that I wouldn't do. If it meant me taking the rap for one of my kids, you're damn right I would do it. Zero problem with that. And for him to basically express that and be like, you know what, this is what I'm doing. I have to protect him, and fuck justice. I'm protecting my kid.
Well, I will say, going back to the parallels with him and Jimmy Baxter, and them being in this shoe on the other foot scenario, it does make sense, that it turned out this way due to, what Spencer said, those resources that Jimmy Baxter has that Michael doesn't. He's gone because of the nature of his work and, and his mob life. It's realistic for his family to find their way out of it and for no justice to really be served whatsoever. And for someone who's clearly guilty, clearly dangerous, as Carlo is, to get off scot-free because of who his dad is, it's it adds up, and it's the sort of thing. Well, like but they're not going to get away with it for long because Carlo's dumb as a bag of rocks, and it'll be maybe 2 years before
he'll fuck up something again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to that point that Jimmy mentioned, where Carlo is where Carlo needs to be Jimmy, and there is no more Jimmy. When that point comes, Carlo's going away for life. Carlo couldn't survive more than 1 to 2 years as Jimmy Baxter.
Absolutely. It's great because during the courtroom, when he's on the stand during the courtroom scene, at first it's like, oh wow, Carlo's doing what his lawyer told him to do. He's playing the role. He's bullshitting the jury, and he's doing a decent job at it. And then the moment he's thrown a curveball, the moment he's out of control, he snaps. He loses it, and that's a big weakness of his. He just if it wasn't for Michael doing everything in his power to help him, he would have been found guilty. Michael literally had to break the law and do horrible things in order to help him because Carlo screwed it up. He was doing well, and then he screws it all up.
Remember, there was a line too where Jimmy was talking about how visceral his pain was, and how once he realized, his kid, his whole world died, he could do anything. It was like a freedom. My thing is that I know they didn't renew. Well, it's not that they didn't renew. The showrunner said we're not doing a season 2 or whatever. But my thought now is to Michael post this. He did everything he could to basically keep Jimmy away from Adam, to keep Adam safe. Well, Adam's dead now. So what lengths is Michael going to go to basically bury Jimmy?
Well, yeah, and that was the sort of thing I was thinking of too. I was going to mention that a little later, that a season 2 would make, like, even though they don't plan to do it, if they have all the pieces they need for it, if they did want to do a second season or a second series sometime later down the road, because there's so many, and I don't want to say loose threads because they're not really loose. The story is resolved, but there's so many threads that you can tug on.
I have a list.
Yeah, there's a number of things, a number of ways you can go. You could have this sort of thing where Costello and Charlie are actually trying to clean up the town to some degree, but there's some pushback from Jimmy, and then there's the covering up that they did for Michael that's holding them back to some degree. But now Michael, has lost everything, so he doesn't quite, he doesn't exactly care anymore. What happens to his life? As long as he brings about some justice, as long as he pays this penance for everything he's done. Because all the sacrifices he's made, all the people he's thrown under the bus, all the deaths, all the pain and suffering has now that he's caused has now been for nothing. It's been for nothing. He didn't manage to save his son, and which was his sole goal in all of this. He wasn't, like, to some degree at points he was looking out for himself, but the reason all went this far was to save his son, and he's lost that now. And he's left with nothing. He can't even have Lee because now Lee knows. And her faith in the system is even broken. So she's transformed as a character. So there's nothing that remains of the former normalcy that Michael had in his life at all.
Let me rattle off the list really quick, and then we can approach it any way you want. Like you said, Nancy and Charlie, their plan to take down the corrupt police. What does Lee do? The Baxters got away with things. How do they spin this in their favor? The dead guy that was trying to blackmail Michael for the boat. Does that ever return? I wasn't completely satisfied with the Robin plot. It could, it is what it could be done, but there could be more to it. Desire Crew's church money laundering scheme. Never got any more into that. Heat on Desire Crew for what Eugene did. And then, like I said earlier, Elizabeth, the senator, what does she do after the events that took place?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because now her grandson is dead, and it's the sort of thing where she asked a lot of questions in the beginning, and I could see her asking a ton more after the events that happened. Like, what was he doing? Having dinner with the Baxters. What was all this about? There's no way she's going to stop digging after everything that happened.
Yeah, why would she stop now? This is, to me, it was her daughter, but she knew about the cheating. She found out about all these things. So in her own head, what happened to her daughter, regardless of what she was doing extramarital, probably didn't necessitate her dying, but in her head, it kind of reshapes her opinion of her own kid. So I think that now you go to a 17-year-old kid, and how innocent Adam was, well, in a grandparent's eyes, how innocent he was and everything. And now she doesn't know that it was Adam's fault that the accident happened. So now you have this seemingly innocent kid that's in the wrong place at the wrong time and dies. She's going to have a whole fuck ton of questions. She's going to, if she couldn't prosecute it herself, she's going to find somebody to do it.
Yeah, and I could see if they wanted to do a second series sometime down the line, maybe as the main person that you follow, I could see it being Costello, if anybody, because she's a very good detective for one. She seems to be, she doesn't have the dirt on her hands. A lot of the characters do, and you could have that whole initiative that Charlie was talking about, where they're trying to clean up the police force. But I could see Charlie, being kind of not being 100% on the level with that, because for one, some of those dirty cops were working with him. Like Charlie got them to dispose of that car for a reason. Charlie was doing dirt via the police department, so he may clean up the things a little bit, but he's not gonna be 100% honest. Is the thing. So there's so much.
Instead of Your Honor, it's called the mayor.
I'd watch that.
I would too.
It's but another Wire reference, I'm sure.
Yes.
That I missed.
Well, it's his tagline. The guy who plays
Charlie
Bach, the guy who plays Charlie, that's his tagline from The Wire. And I think I've just said this before. He actually did it before The Wire, and I can't remember what show it was. He coined that right before he started doing The Wire, but then in The Wire he drew it out super long, and it became a catchphrase.
Did you guys know, or did you see it in the credits? Bryan Cranston actually directed he directed the final episode.
Yeah, I thought that was. To me, it didn't make sense. It didn't clear anything up, but I thought he did a great job.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely did a great job on this one. So he's never directed any of the others, or was
not this series. I'm sure. I haven't checked his directing credits, but no, this was the first episode in Your Honor that he directed. I know. I'm not from personal experience, but I've heard a lot of actors, they say it's hard to direct something you're in. I think Ben Affleck said that before.
He did 7 episodes of Malcolm in the Middle. I didn't know.
Oh shit.
A couple other things. He directed an episode of The Office. I didn't know. 3 episodes of Breaking Bad, 2 episodes of Modern Family, and then this.
There you go.
Got
Oh,
10 directorial.
Does he have any writing credits? I'm just curious.
Writer, 5 credits. There's one called Sneaky Pete. I don't know what that is.
sounds familiar.
It's an Amazon original. He's the creator of it. It went 4 seasons.
Might have to
I
check that out.
Yeah, I never heard of that.
Yeah, he's the creator. He wrote it and he directed a couple episodes too. So.
That's crazy. Yeah, we'll have to check that one out then. Put that in my backlog. Sneaky Pete. I probably looked at the title, chuckled, and then just never clicked on it, like having no idea what it was. Like, but yeah, I guess he's probably a pretty good director. Then he seems to have a lot of experience. This episode, turned out incredibly well. Love the cyclical nature of it and the way everything was set up. But yeah, man, it's just it's a shame to see this series. Well, not really a shame because it ended well. But man, it's like, what's going to fill the gap that Your Honor left because it was such a good series to follow?
Well, Sneaky Pete is about a con man on the run from a vicious gangster who takes cover by assuming the identity of his prison cellmate Pete, reuniting with his estranged family that threatens to drag him into a world just as dangerous as the one he's escaping.
Well, maybe Sneaky Pete is next.
Yeah. And it's Giovanni Ribisi is the main guy. I was on the page still, so I just figured I'd read that.
But yeah, like you said, Larry, this is this was the last episode. Would you recommend it, and who would you recommend it to?
Everyone.
Yeah, same here. A little bit of everyone. I mean, if you like shows beyond, beyond if you enjoy entertainment, anything beyond a barbecue movie, I'd recommend it to you.
Well, and the way this was structured and the way it ended, it felt, and we've talked about this with 30 Coins and stuff, like Shakespearean almost. Or even I don't know why it's escaping me, but the Odyssey, or those kind of things where it's so epic, but by the end of it, you're just like, holy shit, this person's backstabbing this guy. It felt more like that. And if you like theater, this felt very much like a theater production. Yeah,
there's so many little twists and turns. It's much like that. And if you like mob movies, if you like mob movies or mob shows, it's good for that reason. If you like just seeing the levels of corruption that when the system is corrupt, the level of corruption that you get and the different layers of society that it permeates, it does a good job of showing that. So I don't know, as a Breaking Bad fan, I recommend it to other Breaking Bad fans. And, would you guys recommend this to other people who have enjoyed The Wire, given that I haven't seen that one?
Yeah. Definitely. I like the fact that it was, it was a gangster series. It was a
courtroom drama.
It was, it had all these different little elements going on in it. And that tragic ending, I thought really was earned. I liked it. Like I said at the front, I am curious to how audiences will like it or not like it. It was one of those like, ooh, this could be controversial, or people could be irritated by it, the fact that the Baxters won, but it makes sense. And sometimes the bad guys do, in fact, win. So
yeah, exactly. And it's the sort of thing is like nobody's rooting for Carlo, like at least no good people are rooting for Carlo. But it's like realistically though, that looks about right, unfortunately.
And in that whole Shakespearean tragedy, that's this is very much that. My last real point, and then anything else you guys want to talk about, what happens to Fia? Fia has been a victim throughout. She lost her brother. Now she's lost her boyfriend. She's never done anything bad that we've seen. Yeah, she seems somewhat aware of what her dad does, but she's not part of the family business directly as far as what we were shown. What does she do now? How does this affect her? Does he tell her?
Well, I'll say this much. It's this sort of thing where, to me, where Thea will likely just kind of break contact with their family and only see them via phone. Well, probably call them regularly, and either that or she'll continue to be in denial about things, if anything. Because she was when she was talking to Adam, or at least she was glossing over a lot of what her family does and knowingly putting him in some degree of danger, by going, oh, my dad's not as bad as they say they are, only Carlo's that bad, because she only seemed to frame Carlo as a bad person in her family. But, we've gotten a good idea of the breadth of what the Baxters do. Like they are legit mobsters. They're not good people. And she put him in that danger. She could have easily not talked to her old man about him, not put him in this danger. They were both, on their way to college and everything. They could have just left, and Adam could have never had any dealings with her family, and the ending wouldn't have happened the way it happened.
Yeah, well, there's so many ways that she could have, had a better life post this all going down, but at this point, you saw what kind of piece of shit Gina was, the mom. You saw that Jimmy's not a good guy. Carlos was an awful human being. But is this going to be the thing that pushes her over the edge? Would she end up following the life of crime that her mother did? Or would she basically be like, you know what, there's nothing tying me here anymore, I'm leaving? So, she graduates high school and then leaves and gets away from her family. I'm not entirely sure which route she would go.
Well, yeah, and maybe I think I'm being a little hard on the character for glossing over, how dangerous her family is for Adam, because perhaps to her even it's not that bad because that's her normal. That's the thing. That's what she's known her whole life. Is the thing. Jimmy Baxter was who he is when she was born.
Yeah, kids. That's they talk about nature versus nurture. That's the only life she's ever known. So for someone to be like, that's bad. Well, it's not bad to her. It's what she knows. It's her only reality is that.
Yeah, exactly. That's bad. Your dad's a dangerous man. And she's like, he's not that dangerous. And you guys don't see the other side of him. And it's like, no one ever is going to see the other side of him. He's your dad. It's
But we also don't know what all she's seen or not seen. She may have not. She may not have seen a lot of the really bad stuff. We don't know.
Well, I mean, she's probably seen enough mob movies to know that her family's not up to anything good.
well, and nowadays too, in the 60s and 70s, the internet wasn't a thing. So people being tied to stuff, it was more news reports and word of mouth. But now there's no way that she doesn't know some of the speculative things that her dad is involved in.
Well, yeah, if she was as dumb as Carlo, then maybe, but she's smart enough to know that, when she reads a lot of those articles, she's smart enough to piece together some of it and say, yeah, this is how my dad was definitely involved in that, or he was definitely there. She's smart enough to see the level of corruption and to have an idea of, where the money comes from.
That's about it, really. Let me see here. Yeah, it sucks. There's supposedly no next season, so we can't speculate too much more.
I can speculate.
Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap this up?
I just want to say, if we did get another season, I'd very much want the scenario that I mentioned before. I'd like to see, a guilt-ridden Michael who wants to testify, Costello trying to protect him and, gathering evidence, maybe a lawyer working with them, probably not Lee, because Lee seems disillusioned with the whole thing. And she's actually given up on the system as a whole. She just gave Eugene his money and, seemingly went back to her old job to work for rich folks, and just to make her money because she's disillusioned with that. But, maybe Costello and another lawyer trying to bring them the Baxters, while maybe the Baxters are in her way to some degree because of the level of his involvement. Charlie, now the mayor, is in her way. of course, what remains of the corrupt police force that Charlie protected. That would be neat to see. I think that would make a good follow-up series. Because there's so many strings there you can pull.
I loved Charlie so much in this season, but it was funny. We figured he was corrupt, but in this episode, he alluded to he's taken over. He won the election. So what's going to come of his mayoral campaign? I don't know how to say that without sounding intoxicated, but it's what is going to come from that? He's talking about, I'm going to clean up the streets. I'm going to do this, but clearly he's part of the streets. He's part of the crooked nature behind all this shit. So I would be very interested to see, even if they didn't have anything with Bryan Cranston in it again, a show that took place at the same kind of timeline kind of thing with the mayor, with Charlie. I would watch that. I would love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's partially what I'm getting at. It's like, what type of show do we get when we're getting a show where instead of, Charlie covering for Michael and it's focused on Michael, what does the show become when the heat's on Charlie with all his connections? I imagine, things go a little bit differently. There's more danger involved, I think, because, like you said, some of the corrupt nature of the system itself, Charlie's involved in that. He's the one that called the cops, who contacted the cop, who contacted Desire Crew to get rid of the car in the first place. So how deep do those connections go for Charlie?
That would be interesting if they were going to do some kind of spin-off or sequels show. I agree. Charlie would be one of the primary leads, if not the lead, in the show. And then maybe you reference Michael here and there. Maybe he does a episode or two. I'd be into that, definitely.
Well, yeah, and that's my thing. And that's part of why I wanted to see, if they were going to do that, to have it be the sort of thing where Michael's lost everything, like you said, Spencer, and he's willing to go those lengths. Jimmy Baxter is willing to go because, unlike Jimmy, at this point, Michael truly has nothing. I want to see, does it get to a point where, to protect his position, to protect his station in life, would Charlie be willing to get rid of Michael?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I'm saying that's the sort of thing we could have answered by another series.
But all right, so that's it. Your Honor is done. Season 1, potentially series of Your Honor is over. Yeah,
it was a great ride.
It was a great ride.
The last thing, when you said potentially, if the showrunner said, yeah, it's over, I would actually, as much as I want to see something else, I hope that it's something, it could be similar characters, but something completely different, because we've talked about Supernatural before. You got the first 5 seasons of Supernatural are great. The showrunner's like, that's what I planned out. This is what I did. And it was supposed to be over. And it wasn't. And although the show ran like 10 more seasons, out of those 10 seasons, there's only about 3 that are good, and the rest of them are mediocre at best. So if this was what the intent was, is that dramatic kind of Shakespearean story, leave it alone. It doesn't mean that I don't want it personally, because, I enjoyed the characters. I want more of it. But I also think that more could fuck it up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's the sort of thing, like you said, if they don't have another story to tell, I don't want them to force one out just for the sake of, money, Like if this is it, that's fine. And it was a great self-contained little series, which it seems to have been written as, but they did leave some neat little threads that we could follow up on. And, if they're willing to do that, I'm definitely willing to tune back in and watch.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely watch it. I just,
you just don't want it to be, the sort of situation where they're jumping the shark because they're still getting revenue from it.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed. Well, all right. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.